Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm joined today by Juanita Coley from Solid Rock Consulting. This is going to be the first of hopefully many what's new in CX videos between her and I. Juanita, very well known in the CX space, also the current reigning Miss Corporate America. So glad to have you on, Juanita.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. And I'm so excited about this series. This is going to be super cool.
Yeah, there's always a lot going on in the space. And in fact, if you look in the communication sector itself, CX tends to be where a lot of the news is. All the UC providers are now CX. And we just thought with so much news coming out, it'd be good to get our thoughts on what that means. And so this month, June, was a busy month, right? We had the CCW show, which is Customer Contact Week, and NICE had their interactions event. CCW obviously filled with different vendors trying to show off their latest and greatest. And why don't we just kind of peg through some of the more notable news? The first one let's talk about is Talkdesk. Talkdesk certainly a challenger when it comes to the CX space. I think they've kind of come into their own. They announced something called CXA, or Customer Experience Automation, which involves AI tools or agents that can actually work together to manage everything from front-end interactions to back-office tasks. And I think the goal of CXA is to automate complex tasks. And so in this world where we talk about agentic AI running complete processes for us, how meaningful is it to have the agents be able to talk to each other and actually coordinate functions to be able to complete tasks?
Yeah, I think that that's super critical. But I having a background as an agent, right? And then, talking to customers and working with customers every day. I think one of the things that's super cool that probably is even kind of like an undertone is not just the AI agents in there talking to themselves, but the ability for agents, actual human agents, to be able to see this orchestration happening, see where, time is being saved, how they can also then improve on their own interactions. Like it's not just the AI agent that's impacting the customer experience and orchestrating some of these back office things. It's also then that human in the loop that can manage some of these interactions alongside AI that I think is probably a piece that's getting missed in just the whole big part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this manifests itself too, because we're putting a lot of trust in machines to make decisions, and I think in a lot of cases it can make better, faster decisions than people can. But you really want to have that check, from a human perspective, to make sure that it's, indeed doing the right thing. I do think we tend to build trust pretty quickly when it comes to these things. But clearly when it comes to your customers, you want to make sure it is making the right decision. And so I think your point on having the human in that loop is important.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just think about, I was talking to someone the other day and we were talking about imagine in an interval, single interval, 8 to 8:30, let's call it, where we have 35 interactions that are going to be coming through in that interaction or that interval. You normally would have to have 35 plus people if you have a high
Yeah.
service level goal, right? Well, now if we take 5 AI bots, right, that are doing different things that can handle those 35 interactions, right? That one bot that can handle those 35 interactions, but you have a person, a human that's in the loop that can oversee what's happening with those 35. You just added a multiplier to your workforce while still keeping that human in the loop of authenticating that the AI is making the right decision, so you almost make your agent supervisors of AI.
Yeah, and I do know Talkdesk is going to focus this on some of the verticals they feel where they do have complex workflows. Healthcare, financial services is an example. You think of the process of approving a mortgage, right? Anybody that's bought a house, knows how complicated that
Yep.
is. So I think that's probably the right way to approach it. Yeah. And all right, so let's move on to Ring Central. They were another vendor at CCW that made an announcement. They announced something called Customer Journey Analytics, and that's a very generic name because everybody's got a journey analytics platform. What I thought was interesting about this is it pulls information from its UCaaS and its CCaaS environments and provides visibility into that end-to-end customer interaction versus having fragmented departmental views. And what I find really interesting about this is we've been talking about the promise of UCCC integration, heck, as long as we've had UCCC, I suppose.
Right, right.
and no one's really ever been able to prove what that value is other than purchase order integration, right? It's obviously good to buy it from one vendor. It's a little simpler. But now we're getting into some of the data analytics, and how meaningful do you think that is from their perspective?
I mean, it's huge, right? It's a huge thing. Well, I'm like I'm interested to see how they pull it off, right? Like because it's a huge thing. Just think about every interaction or every customer interaction isn't always necessarily the endpoint or the journey isn't always contact center. Sometimes it is at an endpoint that is on a license that has UCast, right? It's a different license, right? So to be able to pull those together and have the customer journey still remain seamless and be able to pull the data points from each of these different things. You have back office, you have endpoints that actually end in the contact center. You decentralize, right? Or yeah, you decentralize and having these different silos that typically would occur inside of an organization to say, okay, now I can have a real customer journey map end to end that I can pull data from any piece of the business, regardless of where they started, whether they started on the website, whether they started wherever they started, and map that interaction throughout. That I think
Yeah.
is next level. I'm interested to see how it gets actually.
Yeah, well, the whole goal is to be able to maintain context between when transferring calls between departments. And I think anybody that's called into a contact center gets frustrated when the context is dropped. And
They got to repeat themselves over
yeah.
and over. Like I just said this a minute ago, your system didn't pick it up. No, because it wasn't a interaction that initiated in the contact center, right? And so it initiated somewhere else. And so now you got to repeat yourself because that's not in this system, all the different things.
Yeah, if they can pull that off on the other UCAS vendors, it'll be interesting to see how that would that ever force the hand of the CCAS vendors to move into UC? Because if you look, all the UC vendors are now in CCAS, but that's not necessarily true the other way, right? And I think part of that is just because from a large enterprise perspective, there hasn't been that demand to buy UCCC together. But if now Ring Central customers can start getting some kind of competitive advantage, that would drive the demand. And so I'm hopeful that we start to see some proof points of that because I do think there is value. It just hasn't really manifested itself into something tangible yet. So
yeah, that'll be cool to see.
So Five9 was another vendor. Let's have a little chat about what they announced at CCW, and they announced something called their customer. So they announced as part of their customer experience platform, AI agents. But then also with AI trust and governance. And so Jonathan Rosenberg actually walked me through an example of how this works, where because everyone's got agents now, but they wanted to make sure that the correct guardrails were built around that. And so, he walked through an example where somebody might request a loan for 40,000, even though it's not stated directly by the person, the system would know that based on their income. And then if the loan amount changed, the system would remember the details and then deny it and things. And so what I liked about this was the trust and governance part wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't left to a third-party vendor, right? They're rolling out agents, but they understand that trust, governance, guardrails all have to be part of that, the agent. And so your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that is the where we have to go when we're thinking, because like you said, almost every CCAS vendor is talking about AI agents, but it's like, how do we build that trust faster, and not only trust, compliance, and a company that shall remain nameless, right? I think if they would have had something like this in place, it would have prevented, and is actually in the banking and loan industry. So when you brought that example up, I'm thinking about another company that had a big issue around this, right around when we had these PPPs, which was these paycheck protection program back during COVID. They were just almost auto approving the loans, right? And it was like, where's the governance around this? And so I think if we had something very similar to this at that point, then that would have prevented some of the things that we saw there. So yeah, I think that trust and that compliance built into, and like you said, not an afterthought, not left to a third party vendor, but built into the front end of what does it mean to actually have an AI agent? Because these are the cognitive abilities that humans would be looking at. And so how do we build that into our actual AI?
Yeah, and I applaud Five9 for getting in front of this because typically when you see the rollout of new technology, we don't really think about the security implications until after we've had an issue with it, right? So I've always said the security of stuff comes a couple of years after the stuff. I think given, again, with contact center, you're dealing with a lot of customer information. Getting in
Mm-hmm.
front of this does become important. And I'm curious when you talk to customers about the rise of agents and stuff. Where does trust in governance come up with respect to barriers to adoption?
I mean, it's one of the first things to barriers or to adoption. Like again, I know we see all of these white papers and we see all of these different stats that come out like, oh, AI, AI, AI. But when I'm talking to customers, right, and I'm actually working with customers, they're like, hey, that's great and it's cool. It's on our radar. We want to do that, but we can't do that because of this trust or this compliance or this thing, right? And so until we get to a place to where, so what happens, what I'm seeing a lot of is they have part of the solution that they're using for some of the automation or things that they can streamline. But when it comes to just totally turning it over to AI, they're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. you
Yeah.
know? And so they're using 10, 20% of the tool because trust and compliance wasn't baked in at a beginning thought.
Yeah. All right. And we got let's move on. Now, one vendor that was at CCW that also ran the same event was Nice, right? And they had their
Interactions.
interactions event, which is their largest customer event. I unfortunately couldn't make it this year. Generally, I really like going to this event because I do feel Nice is still for all intents and purposes, the market leader. And they've been carrying the ZKast flag and the AI flag. It was Barry Cooper's first keynote as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, and they had a bunch of announcements there actually, and I thought, and let's kind of go through these in pieces. They
They
had
have their new CEO too,
yeah, a new CMO, new
Scott.
CEO.
Mhm.
So they had um, a set of announcements revolving around partnerships, AWS Snowflake ServiceNow, and what I thought was really interesting about that is they don't generally partner a lot. And I don't know if any of those were more meaningful to you than the others. I thought the Snowflake one was interesting because it addresses another big issue in AI, which is data. I remember being at Interactions a couple of years ago, not Interactions, sort of the Analyst Summit, the one in Machu Picchu, talking to one of their customers about AI, and they said we don't have all our data in one place, and so we can't really get ready for AI, and so Snowflake allows them to do that, right? So between AWS, Snowflake, ServiceNow, any of those more meaningful to you than the other?
Yeah, Snowflake, honestly, personally,
Yeah.
was is my favorite that they announced because of the data piece, right? Like I'm I'm always talking about there are four pillars of workforce management. We have data, forecasting, scheduling, and intraday. Becomes at the beginning. Like I can't do any good forecasting without good data. Trash in equals trash out. So my data is all siloed, or people think that they just because they have data, they have a data management process. So I preach about that, which is your data should be. We have a framework at SRC we call clear. Your data should be clear, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself. But what I love about the partnership between NICE and Snowflake is that they're putting a precedence on, or emphasis rather, on how important data is. Because if
Mhm.
we don't start there, you're not going to be doing good forecasting. You're going to have poor integrations with, or not integrations, but you're going to have just poor outcomes, right? You're going to be doing things just to be doing it and not really looking at the data, and you're going to have data silos. So that was actually one of my favorites
Yeah.
of the three.
The AWS one, what I find interesting about that too is that was a marketplace partnership. And with AWS having its own contact center connect, people really don't understand the value in the
I
marketplace.
yeah, I wasn't. I'm interested to see how that go. I don't know if that's a spin down play or if it's like I'm not sure what the play is there, but
Well, So Talkdesk is available on the AWS Marketplace. Genesis is as well. And what this does is if you run on the AWS cloud,
Mm-hmm.
customers of AWS have a certain number of credits to spend, right?
Right.
And so the customer now can buy
You
it,
can spend it with, yeah.
yeah, but using their AWS credits. And so it is a spend down play, as you mentioned. I think there's a bit of a fallacy though that people, or a myth that people have, thinking that the Connect team, because they run it, because they're owned by Amazon, the marketplace is going to push Connect ahead of the other products. And I've talked to the marketplace team about this. And this is the best thing about the marketplace. The people that run the marketplace, all they care about is spinning the cycles in the AWS cloud. And they couldn't care less if you buy Talkdesk, AWS, Nice, you buy who you want to buy. And then it actually creates a scenario where if Connect isn't up to par with the other products, customers won't buy them. The marketplace still wins because they get their revenue.
It's a spin, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so it puts pressure on the AWS products available in the marketplace to keep up with the competitors. So it's not like I'm forcing you to buy my product because we're Amazon, it's Amazon. You're open to buy whatever, but then it creates this competitive effect where the Amazon related products also have to keep up. And so I think the marketplace works really well for customers. And I think from a competitive standpoint, people like to throw a FUD out there and say that, they're not going to work for you, but the marketplace team and the Connect teams are two totally separate ones. And that seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. And like you said, it forces them to be competitive. So when I heard that announcement, that partnership announcement, I immediately thought it was, okay, this must be a spin down play. And I mean, it makes sense from that perspective.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating model, the whole cloud model. You get your customer to pre-spend money with you.
Right, right.
You don't know what you're going to use it. It's a little like the analyst business, I guess. But,
Right.
yeah.
You said it, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, and the other part of the announcement was the Empower agents that work across the CX1 Empower platform. That these are agents that you can build yourself within the platform. Nice says you can do it relatively quickly. So I'm reading the press release. It says you can build them in seconds, is what it says. And I think what really differentiates us, though, from what came before, is how the agents now can collaborate with other systems, right? And so they're able to scrape context from other solutions and trigger actions and things like that. So again, this comes down to what we started with, which was agent to agent communications, the importance of end-to-end data. And every vendor is now trying to get there. They're all doing it from different points of view, though.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be important when it comes to how we just start to pull all of these different things together, like how we pull the partnerships together, how do we pull agents together, how we pull all these different things together. I think that's going to be critical.
All right, Juanita. Well, I think this wraps up the first ever episode of What's New in CX, and we'll be back unless there's anything else you want to add. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
No, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about the show. I think this is going to be super cool.
Yeah, well, so on behalf of Juanita Coley from Solid Rock Consulting, I'm Zeus Caraval from CK Richardson. Thanks for watching. Make sure you give us a like and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of What's New in CX.
What's New in CX? See you guys soon. Bye.